Basketball is an extremely difficult sport to reproduce as a tabletop sim. The pace of the NBA is really hard to get right. And in particular, the way defense and offense intersect is really hard to simulate. Now, Strat-O-Matic's advanced basketball board game is intriguing. It's unique among all the board basketball games because of how shooting works. Players are rated for outside shooting, inside shooting, penetration, and the fast break, which of course isn't necessarily unique. But you see, in Strat-O-Matic Advanced Basketball, the person playing the game chooses whether players take an outside shot, penetrate, or take a three-point shot. This isn't completely unique, but it's rare. Most modern basketball board games sort of play themselves. The cards wind up controlling the action for you, and you're there to make some substitutions and maybe get the action flowing. And there's some of that in Strat's Advanced game, but as you'll see, there's really a lot more room for coaching in this game than in most other games. Now, the first thing you'll notice about the Strat Advanced game is that it's confusing. There are more results packed onto these fast action cards than in any other basketball game that I'm aware of. Replay's board basketball game, for example, has relatively simple cards. That game's cards are double-sided, making it a little bit easier to remember what you're supposed to do on every possession. The Hoops basketball board game also uses double-sided cards with the possession instructions on one side. Ignore the arrows. The other side of the cards have instructions that are a lot easier to figure out. The old player determination cards for Mickey's Fast Break were only single-sided, but they also didn't provide the overwhelming amount of instructions that Strat-O-Matic's game provides. Strat's fast action cards are pretty bewildering, especially at the beginning. There are also a few things that you need to decide at the beginning of the game, things that really don't make much sense until you started playing and have figured out how the flow works. Now, I don't think that this game does a great job of simulating today's NBA, but I do think that it's pretty good in terms of the game as it was played in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So let's dig in. The very first thing to figure out is how you want to position your players. Strat-O-Matic uses phrases like right guard and left guard mostly for the purpose of getting the double team system to make sense. The thing to remember is that your right guard should be your point guard and your best rebounding forward should be the left forward. This makes sense when you look at how the fast action cards are composed, which is something that we'll get to later. The nice thing though is that the game also allows you to mix up defensive matchups so you can get the matchups that you want. You have to figure out a way to track it, but it is an option. You'll also need to choose a player to be your inside block man, usually the guy who has the highest block rating. This will probably wind up being your center. Additionally, you need to place your offensive players either inside or outside, and this is where it gets complicated. You can only place players who have an eye on their shooting tendency inside, otherwise they have to be placed outside. Additionally, you can only place 2 players inside at most. Usually you want those to be players who have good inside scoring ability, though the rulebook does talk about height and weight. Those things don't really actually matter. There are other options you can choose, but we'll get to those in a second. Let's look at how the game actually flows first. Like the basic game, the advanced game begins with the jump ball, which comes only from this chart. You only have one at the beginning of the game, and the players do not have jump ball ratings. The first thing we need to do is turn over the first fast action card and look for the control rating. We're just doing normal defense now, so that's going to be this right here, RG or the right guard. You then flip over the next fast action card and read the result on top, either home for the home team or visitor for the visiting team. So let's say we're the home team. The result is opponent defense 26. So we look at the defense column of the opposing defender, so let's say it's Dennis Johnson. We're looking for 26, which is this pass to any 1+ for a position shot. That means that the player with the ball passes to any shooter with a rating of 1 or higher for a shot. So Magic Johnson can pass it to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, for example, and then he takes a shot. You roll the dice, and let's say you get a blank on the black die and the other 2 dice add up to 6. Under Kareem's I column, he has an X, which means that the shot was good. Now pretend that the dice gave you a D on the black die. You'd then look at the other team's defensive card, the Boston Celtics in this case. A 6 under column I gives you an X, which means the shot was good. If it was a 5, you get an O, which means that the shot was no good since this is a contested shot, not an open shot. And if you've got an X on the black die with 6, you'll have to look someplace else. You'll need to look at Robert Parrish's X column under I, where you'd get a blank, meaning the shot was no good. Okay, was that complex enough for you? If you think about it though, you'll realize that defense plays a really important part in Strat's advanced basketball game, and I really think that's what the main selling point of the game is. Now let's take a quick look at how the rebound system works. What we need to look at is the same fast action card we just looked at, one of the confusing parts of the game. We get this reading, OC4 if not DC. OC means offensive center and DC means defensive center. Now Kareem's offensive rebounding rating is a 0, which is less than 4. That means he doesn't get the rebound. Instead, the rebound goes to the defensive center, Robert Parrish in this case. Now this final rebounding rating only comes into play if there is a second rebound. For example, let's say that Kareem did manage to get the rebound for whatever reason. He would then automatically attempt an open shot. You then roll the dice for Kareem's shot and follow the shooting procedure we just mentioned. Now, the open shot means that those O results are made baskets, not missed baskets. That's the difference. So you can see how a single fast action card can result in multiple shots being taken. And trust me, I know this stuff's pretty complex. Okay, since we were just talking about defense and inside shots, let's look quickly at what having an inside block man designated actually means. If you've got an inside block man designated, he's going to give up any outside shots that the opposing offensive player shoots as open shots. Now look again at Kareem's card, for example. All of his outside shots are misses on this card, which means that if you're on defense, you can go ahead and have your center play as the block man without worrying about anything. Let's look at the Celtics advanced defense card again. See this strange thing here? This is where that block man rating comes into play. If you roll a 7 on Boston's defensive card for a penetration or an inside shot, the block man intervenes. In that case, you look over at the blocking rating for the block man as well as the 20-sided number from the fast action card that you're currently using. That number would be this number down here. So for Robert Parrish, if that number is a 7 or an 8, the shot is blocked. Otherwise, the shot is good. In other words, in the Strat Advanced game, really good shot blockers are going to be a major defensive presence inside. 7 is the number you're most likely to roll after all, and some guys are going to be so dominant down low that you're going to want to stay away from the inside game if you're on offense. For example, this Wilt Chamberlain card is going to be pretty hard to score against if you're trying an inside shot. Ralph Sampson, meanwhile, has this interesting thing that says BAL. The rulebook really isn't clear, but I suppose this means that the shot is automatically blocked if Sampson is the big man inside. And I apologize for not knowing the answer or being able to figure it out. The rulebook really is a slog to get through. I hate to say that. The way that this game combines offense and defense is fascinating, but the rulebook really has no organization, no real rhyme or reason to it. Anyway, let's go over some of the more notable results that you'll find. Okay, let's say your fast action card has a control rating like this, right guard passes to center. And so we'll take a look at Magic Johnson's card. We draw the next fast action card and look for the number on the bottom left, this time it's 16. When you look at Magic's card, this is a so-called dazzler. A dazzler means that you don't even need to roll the dice. Kareem's field goal is good no matter what. There are a few other things to go over, though I'll only touch them briefly here in the interest of time. The problem, of course, is that, again, this is a really complex game. For example, there's the switch system, which comes up in cards like this one. The player with the ball is the player identified by the last control card. The defender is the one listed on the switch reading. So for that last card, the center would be the defender. And if the control player was the center, then you use the second position listed, the left forward in this case. Now, if the defender is the inside block man, like the center, and you roll a 7, the shot is automatically no good. But if you roll a 7 and it's a normal defender, not the inside block man, you use that defender's block ratings in the X section of his card. Clear as mud, right? Anyway, the cool thing here is that a strong blocker starts to make his presence felt throughout the entire game. The frustrating thing, of course, is that it's kind of complex and it's not easy to explain, but when you think about it, it does make some sense. There's also a double team system that's pretty interesting. Double teaming does 3 things. First, it reduces the double team player's shooting rating by 1. Second, it means that a black dice roll that reads X is automatically no good and you go look at the rebound. Remember that an X normally takes us to the X column. Third, it means that the double-teamed player can pass up the shot, resulting in a replay. It basically means that he passed the ball away. Or in other words, you can really shut down the opposing offense just by double-teaming a guy, but there are some problems with that strategy. The unguarded player is basically open for both outside and inside shots. Also, the unguarded player hits a basket if the black dice roll is an X. And there are a few other benefits as well. It's an interesting trade-off and it really requires you as a coach to understand what the other team is good at. If the offense centers around one player, you can really shut it down with a double team. If you got both Jordan and Pippen on the other team though, you might want to rethink your strategy. Anyway, let's look at that fast break system. The fast break system basically means that your team is going to run the ball up the floor every time you get a defensive rebound. That brings us back to our lovely fast action cards. There's a control section designated for the fast break system. For example, in this case, the reading is a right forward pass to right guard. So if Jamal Wilkes is your right forward, you draw another card, look at the split number on the bottom, and then refer to this fast break section of his card. Sometimes the reading will say something like this: fast break shot for right guard, roll dice. In that case, you don't even draw a new card. You just roll the dice and look at the fast break column of the player. So we would look at Magic Johnson's fast break column for the result. And we probably should look at the full court press as well. Not only are there separate readings for the full court press, but there's also a separate split number on the fast action cards. Now the press only happens after a made field goal, which should be obvious. You're not going to be able to run much of a full court press after giving up a rebound. The offensive team, the team being pressed, looks at the press control reading of the card. In the last card we saw, it says right guard. Now we draw another card. The press reading here says opponent defense 37. And if we look at Dennis Johnson's card, assuming he's the defender, we see that he's committed a foul. Okay, look back at that fast action card. You see that split number here? You use this number if you draw a reading that says there's a pass. It means that the offensive team beat the press. In this case, the split numbers don't include a 1 or a 2, which is always a turnover. Or in other words, it's designed so that the defensive team will be punished with a fast break opportunity for the offense if they press too much. It's got a really nice balance in that sense. Speaking of balance, I took some time to dissect the fast action cards to see how the game actually works. This was nice because it confirmed to me that all defensive ratings are indeed possible. Interestingly enough, there is a built-in home court advantage. The home team section has more outside or inside shot readings than the visiting team section. The visiting team, meanwhile, has to deal with more replay results. The home team has twice as many switch results and no turnovers from the fast action cards. The visiting team, meanwhile, is clearly at a disadvantage. I was worried at first that this might result in an issue, however, I've played enough to know that it doesn't. The reason why, of course, is because the way the game works is actually stored in the player cards, which is kind of the genius of the game. Look at Mark Eaton, for example. He's not going to do much of anything on the fast break. He can score on inside shots, but not that much, and you really don't want to have him outside. He also can't really penetrate to the basket. That's why he has the shooting tendency of only eye. You don't want him to be outside at any point in time, which is exactly how he played in real life. His passing section, however, is good, which is precisely how he played on offense. You see, the cool thing about Strat-O-Matic basketball is that you can read player cards right away, and that actually helps when it comes to figuring out if you want to take an outside shot, a three-pointer, or penetrate. I've saved the best part for last, I know, but it's not as hard to figure out as I thought at first. So let's pick on this homemade Dan Izzo card for 1974-75, for example. You could put Izzo inside, of course. However, if you put him outside, you'll notice that he's not awful, which is consistent with how he was in real life. You probably don't want to penetrate with him though, because his results are far from spectacular. Dr. J, on the other hand, might be able to get to the free throw line if you have him penetrate. However, he's got a much better chance of hitting those open shots, and he's also got sort of an outside chance of hitting a three-pointer if that's what you choose. And I'm going to stay away from the sort of crazy three-point rules for now. Strat keeps on changing them after all. I'll probably need a separate video dedicated just to trying to dissect Strat's most recent three-point system. The other big thing to know, of course, is that all teams in Strat-O-Matic Advanced have 3 team defensive cards, not just one like in the basic game. The one card is for close defense or for guarding players closely, which takes away the outside shot but gives up the drive. Another card is for sag defense, which is the opposite. It gives up the outside shot but takes away the drive. You can do some other cool things too, like have a player play it safe in hopes of avoiding that 6th foul. You can also intentionally foul if you're behind near the end of the game. And if it's a close game and you've got the ball, you can just hold for the last shot. And all of that is pretty cool. The timing mechanism is pretty easy too, it just uses the fast action cards. This is the easiest part of all. There are 60 cards in a deck and 60 cards equals a quarter. You'll see a 24-second clock violation if there are 3 replays before a shot is taken or a foul happens. And a block shot counts as a replay for those purposes. There are also some pretty basic player fatigue rules you can use. It's actually not a bad system and isn't too hard to track. And there you have it, well, most of it anyway. The Advanced Strat basketball board game actually isn't that bad, though the rulebook really needs to be rewritten. Actually, the thing I'm most impressed by are these fast action cards, even though they're a little bit crowded and are somewhat confusing. But in my opinion, the real strength lies in the systems that help control defense. Instead of being just a shooting percentage game, this is the sort of game where your defensive positioning really makes a difference. In fact, if you've got a really good defender underneath, you might wind up keeping everybody on the outside and just staying away from him. Anyway, all of this really makes me wish that Strat would print some old seasons for its card and dice game. I know that you can play with old seasons on the computer game, but honestly, I'd really rather play with the cards and dice. I guess we can't always get what we want. Anyway, let me know what you think down below, and please feel free to tell me and the others about the parts that I may have skipped over in the video.